I'm
I'm a
shocked.
shy podcaster.
I'm shocked.
Um, all right.
Are we in the air?
Yes, we are live from Starfleet headquarters. Hi, everybody. This is the Starfleet Boy episode where we have casual and informal discussions about Star Trek: The Next Generation. And today's episode is going to feature The Big Goodbye, which is episode
11.
11. Yes. So I'm joined once again by my fabulous co-host, the Doctor. Hello, Doctor.
Bye. It's a big
And
goodbye. So.
and Gul Duscott,
Greetings, human.
who you heard in the beginning saying he's a shy person, and that's okay, Gul
I'm very
Duscott.
shy. That's why I don't I don't go out there and publicly put myself on the internet and let my face get on YouTube. 'Cause I'm extremely shy.
I think your mic placement is very interesting today. It's just like very
I'm just
there.
right up on it. Just in
Ooh,
your face.
up on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, real quick, I'm going to take a cue from Drunk Space Nine. Oh, by the way, Doctor, if you do listen to Drunk Space Nine, we're trying to get the Doctor to listen to our other show called Drunk Space Nine. Guldu Scott, gives the most concise summaries of the show, the episodes. They're
As
really,
opposed to yours, which
yeah, mine go on forever, and so.
But I'm sure I miss quite a bit of important detail that you otherwise would cover.
Thank you for your kindness, Guldu Scott, but conciseness is
is a
good,
virtue.
is a virtue. So on that note, the episode, The Big Goodbye, is the first episode to feature Captain Picard's little fascination with 1930s fictional, even fictional in our reality, detective Dixon Hill, who's based on kind of like basically he's just a conglomerate of all the noir
Raymond
films of
Chandler.
the and paper pulp novels of the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Raymond Chandler novels and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like The Big Sleep and all that.
Right. As a matter of fact, the title's a combination of, I think, The Big Sleep and The Long Goodbye or something like that, if I recall the trivia I read correctly. Um, so anyways, Captain Picard is super stressed out in the beginning of this episode. He's trying to we find out this is, I think, the first episode where Riker is doing a first officer's log. The episode opens with not a captain's log but a first officer's log. And he's talking about how they're going to rendezvous with an alien species who they have not had an encounter with for 20 years because they get offended if you speak their language or mispronounce a word in their language incorrectly. And there's a few interesting gags later on regarding that. But anyways, so then we find out Captain Picard's busy in his ready room with Counselor Troy, and he's trying to figure out the sort of dynamics of this language. And we discover through the dialogue that the aliens are insectoid or insect-like aliens, and so there's this like cool mystery about them. Like, are we gonna get to see them? Which we don't, unfortunately.
Which is
We
very, very disappointing.
we do not get to see them. Anyways, Captain Picard's stressed out, and then Counselor Troy recommends that he take a trip to the holodeck because they have about like 12 hours or something until they rendezvous with I think they're called the Jadan, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the name of the aliens, and I just watched the episode. That's terrible. Anyways, um, at first he's reluctant to do this. He thinks he has to keep practicing, and then he realizes, you know what, a distraction is probably a good thing. It's just like any of us when we're studying too hard or trying to prepare for something, and we're putting too much effort into it. You do sometimes need distraction to get your focus back. It's weird, but it works. So Captain Picard walks into the holodeck and initiates the program that apparently Counselor Troy has already installed for him, which makes me wonder if she masterminded it a little bit, because it's a bit sultry, this little experience that he has when he goes in there. But he gets into the holodeck, and immediately there's a few funny gags about how he looks like a bellhop. Trix, his secretary, is like, "Hey, Dix, what are you doing? Bellhopping on the side at the Fairmont Hotel?" Or some weird kind of 1930s accent like that. And then he encounters this like millionairess, and she who he knows from reading the novels, and she asks him, she thinks that someone's trying to murder her, and she basically puts him on a mission, puts this
On a
Dixon
case.
Hill on a case, thank you. And and then kisses him, and then Captain Picard has to go. He's like totally. We have to remember that this is like early holodeck stuff. Like even for the crew, they're not there. I think the Enterprise probably has one of the more advanced holodecks in all of Starfleet at the moment. So everything looks extraordinarily real. It's not like what they were expecting. And then there's a scene where Captain Picard is like just going on. He's like super excited about how amazing the holodeck is, how real it is. And there's a couple of funny gags in that scene as well, like Dr. Crusher wiping the lipstick off of his lips, which is still on his lips, which is interesting. One would think it'd get erased when you walk out of the holodeck. Yes.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Do any of
I
you
was
think
going to bring that up.
I'm sorry?
Oh, no, I was just going to say I was going to bring that up. It bothered me, too.
I didn't even realize that. I was too consumed with how excited Picard was. I've never seen him so excited on the show before. It was almost out of character. He was just kind of giddy.
He was really giddy. I mean, but I kind of think it was appropriate too, because if I'm not mistaken, this was the captain's first time on the holodeck. So, he's just astonished. I guess he didn't even realize how good the technology had become. And I mean, think about it for a second. Like, if you were to walk right now, knowing how technology is, if tomorrow you walked into the equivalent of a holodeck and you were suddenly on the bridge of the Enterprise, I think you'd be extremely excited and want everyone to.
Oh, I agree. I'm just surprised that he was giddy with the crew like that.
Oh yeah, he really.
He's usually very reserved, but he was just positively, jovial. I mean, he was just like.
It threw him off. Yeah, it threw him off guard. I think he was not expecting what he saw. So, and mind you,
he feel like it's weird though. If this was his first time on the holodeck, isn't that strange? Don't you think the captain would have surveyed his entire ship before they set off on their mission, and that he would have visited the holodeck before?
Well, I mean, one can think of it that way, and then another way to think of it is the same as like how some adults are reluctant to play video games. Like he might view the holodeck as not something to like spend time doing. Like he might think of it more as a waste of time than an actual like thing to go do and have fun with.
He is kind of boring.
What's that?
He's kind of a boring guy in his real life.
Oh God. You heard it here first. Captain Picard is boring. Now, Riker, we know, is very familiar with holo technology.
Yeah, he is.
Something we forgot to mention in the previous episode was
how the two of you could not know holo liar porn. I cannot.
They weren't naked.
What?
They weren't naked.
Oh, but that was coming. That was coming before he got the little, call to go wherever he had to go. Come on.
Yeah, he was pretty. It looked like he was in for the night. It looked like he was relaxed, and
yes,
it was.
Yes, he was. Right.
So, excuse me. Picard invites the crew to go onto the holodeck, and Beverly's really excited about this, actually. But then he drops
Why
this.
is she so excited?
I think like she was excited because like the lipstick and like how excited Jean-Luc was. I mean, like she's not used to him being this giddy, and I think it kind of turned her on.
I think she
Um,
was excited because she thought the captain was asking her out on a date.
yeah, and in a
Yeah.
sense, like he might have been, but then he drops. Of course, he's like, and this is I want this job. He wants to invite the fiction expert.
First of
No,
all, that's not a real job.
wait, wasn't he the historian?
Yeah, but then later he calls him a fiction expert.
They specifically refer to him as the fiction expert. That's why they
fiction-
brought him. We're bringing along Waylon, our fiction expert.
Oh,
The
wow.
narration says it.
So
It's
I
like, why is there a fiction expert? Is that a function that a starship needs? Someone who has read a lot of fiction?
Well, why does the starship need whale navigators, right?
It
Or
doesn't
or a
have whale
counselor for
navigators.
that matter, a counselor on the bridge. But okay.
With that?
Or a counselor on the bridge for that matter. but
Or a
go ahead.
council? Oh, no. Full-time counselor on the bridge, whale navigators, and a fiction expert. The Enterprise is ready for anything.
There are no whale navigators. I thought we established on our last episode that the book is not canon.
Is Star Trek 4 canon? Yes, it is. We have whale navigators. They have life pods and everything, okay? So let's move on.
And I proposed. You missed You missed most of our 45-minute review of.
I'll be watching later. Don't worry.
Star
I
Trek
don't know,
Beyond
for
review.
45 minutes.
But I proposed Puffin navigators for the reboot.
Oh,
I'll let you discover that on your own. So they get this little team together. Data, there's a cool scene where Data learns everything about Dixon Hill in like 20 minutes or 10 seconds, actually, probably like very quickly. So they get this little team together and they go down to the holodeck, and at first it's just Data, Wayland, and Picard, and there was a nice little cameo by Dick Miller right off the bat as soon as they come into the holodeck. And if you guys don't know who Dick Miller is, you might recognize him as Mr. Futterman from the Gremlin movies.
Yes, that was cool.
Yeah,
Is that the
was-
guy who was also in Reservoir Dogs?
Yes.
That's
no,
where I know him
that's
from.
Harvey Keitel. Is he? Wait, is Dick Miller in Reservoir Dogs?
No. Are you talking about the older, bald gentleman? Who
Yeah.
has like the real voice, like the boss.
No. When
the guy who sells-
the guy who sells the newspapers, exactly.
Oh yeah, of course. That guy's in lots of stuff.
Yeah, he's in lots of stuff, but he's, well known as Mr. Futterman in the Gremlins movies, at least to me. So it was really delightful to see him in there, and I think there were a couple of other interesting cameos, but not actors that I knew. But that was one that I definitely recognized.
The guy from Reservoir Dogs also.
Is also in it. I don't remember what scene was.
He was the boss. He was the head boss in Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, gotcha.
He's
Well, anyways-
not Sean Penn, Chris Penn's character's father.
Oh, okay. I gotta watch Reservoir Dogs again. It's been way too long. Probably 25 years since I've seen that
He's
movie.
the guy in the opening scene in the diner. He yells at them all and makes them tip. He yells at Steve Buscemi when Steve Buscemi announces that he's not going to leave a tip.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
So the Girata, I just looked up what they're called. So the Girata, while this is going on, while they're like in the holodeck, the Girata call, and they're like, "We want to speak to the captain, not a subordinate," and they're really offended that Riker even answered the call. So there's that little tension, and well, I guess. Oh, before that. So, anyways, they're all impressed by San Francisco, and then the cops come, and Dixon Hill is being asked, is basically being accused of the murder of the wealthy client from earlier, from before. So then the next scene we have. Dixon Hill like being interrogated by the police, and Dr. Crusher finally comes aboard, and she's dressed. She looks great, I think. What did you guys think?
Super hot.
Yes.
So she gets on the holodeck, and there's a a cool scene where she's kind of like trying to figure out what to do by observing another holodeck woman of the period, and then we go in and we get a little taste of the interrogation, and Captain Picard's enjoying himself, and everything's going really, really wonderfully, and then then suddenly the Gerada decide to probe the Enterprise.
Ooh.
And so apparently this probe does something specifically to the holodeck, because like the purple probe light seems to focus right into the panel on the holodeck and go into it, which is unexplained. I don't really know why the probe affects the holodeck in particular, but apparently it does, and it does something apparently unbeknownst to the Gerada, because they didn't plan it, and it's not mentioned that they're bad guys, right? But all of a sudden the holodeck starts to malfunction, and we don't know this right away. Well, we know this because we're shown that purple light, but the crew don't know this right away, except that Riker tries to summon Captain Picard and can't get a hold of him. Anyways, on the holodeck, you get this kind of like henchman guy, Mr. Leach, come in, and he's asking for the Maltese Falcon or some artifact.
They don't specifically say it's an unnamed MacGuffin.
Yeah,
But yeah, it is probably something like the Maltese.
like the Maltese Falcon.
Yeah.
And at first they're like super entertained. I mean, they're just like this is so fun. Like our lives are being threatened. Ha 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 ha.
Especially Crusher. Crusher is really having fun.
Right. Well, as a matter of fact, I think when anyways, so Mr. Leach, who's like freaked out, like Waylon says, "You're never gonna find that Maltese Falcon," and then he's like, "Now hand me your gun." And Mr. Leach actually shoots Waylon. Waylon falls to the ground, and Dr. Crusher claps.
Like she's watching a show.
Right.
Which to me, it's like, well, holodeck or not, like you're gonna clap so that these characters can be completely confused by your actions. Like Mr. Leach, as an AI, must be totally like, what is wrong with these
people?
Yeah. And of course, this is when the horrific realization comes to them that, oh, Waylon is not pretending. He actually got shot. He's actually bleeding out, and his life signs are in danger, and he could die. So now, as they say, things get real. And
did they say that back in the 40s?
No, we say that now.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought we were doing 40s speak for the entire episode.
More specifically, we say today.
Our characters are in quite a pickle now.
That would be more appropriate. Shit just got real on the holodeck.
Read all about it.
It's almost too real. Anyways. Now we figure out, the bridge crew is figuring out that something's wrong. They can't get into the holodeck. The holodeck crew is trying to figure out how to keep Waylon alive. Mr. Leach is demanding that Dixon Hill give the give up the Maltese Falcon, and we've got a whole lot of drama. And finally, that's when they introduce Cyrus Redblock. Was that his name, Cyrus Redblock?
I think so, yeah.
What a great name.
Great name, typical, awesome 1940s mobster type villain. He's even wearing a bowler hat, or derby, a brown derby hat or a bowler hat. I mean, he's got like, and he's totally like, he's just like the boss, right? So to kind of like, this takes us into the next level where they're trying to keep Waylon alive. So they try a few things, but they finally decide to just fess up and tell Cyrus Redblock that they're not from this planet, and that they're from a planet that's just beyond these fictitious doors or whatever. And he at first he doesn't believe them, but then when Captain Picard starts talking about all the riches beyond anything he could imagine, that are awaiting him on the Enterprise, all of a sudden, Cyrus Redblock becomes interested. And I thought it was fun that the whole time Mr. Leach just wanted to kill everybody. He's just like, oh, when can I kill?
Well, that's his program, right? He's programmed killer.
He's just like Peter Lorre or something.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Question: why couldn't Data just overcome all of them?
He could have, I think.
I mean, what was? I mean, if I mean, and I don't mean to bash the episode because I generally do like the episode a lot. I'm a big fan of the pulp 1940s novels. I read Raymond Chandler and I read the Shadow novels. But I don't understand why. I mean, if this guy was shot and they can see that there's something wrong with the holodeck, I think they could have overcome these gangsters and tried to find a hospital. And wouldn't the holodeck in the hospital have been able to save this guy? I mean, if the bullets can really hurt him, then obviously anything that's in a hospital can really, help him in terms of getting a bullet out and stop the bleeding. I mean, I don't understand why they didn't think of that.
Well,
other than that, the plot would not have moved forward.
That's a very good point. See?
Well, at that particular moment, the holodeck's not responding to any of their commands because Captain Picard.
No, but they didn't need to make commands. They just need to go with the plot.
Well, think about this for a second. So, on the
has there ever been a holodeck episode where our characters spend the entire time in the holodeck and everything works okay?
No.
No, I think the holodeck's pretty dangerous. It's always malfunctioning. It's kind of a really bad thing.
It seems like every holodeck episode, shit goes wrong, and it's just a bad idea. Like, it's not a reliable thing.
No.
To your point, Doctor. So were they able to get off the holodeck? Obviously, the situation would be resolved very quickly, but the holodeck's not responding, so they can't open the doors. So that's one thing, right? If Data had decided to kill, let's say, Silas Redblock him, or
overcome.
Yeah, or just too many variables. Mr. Leach could shoot Captain Picard, or like someone in the head, or something like that.
Picard is a Starfleet officer.
Right, but
that's 3 Starfleet officers. They can't overcome 2 Chicago
thugs.
They don't have any of their Starfleet. They don't have any of their Starfleet technology with them. They're all dressed in 1930s garb. The other thing is let's say.
They don't have their phasers, see? They can't overpower them with just their fists.
Picard is trained in hand-to-hand combat.
We know from other movies that when a person's been shot in the gut, that you're not supposed to move them, first of all, right? So even if you were able to get Wayland to a hospital, let's say you were able to, we're talking about 1930s like hospital technology. I think Wayland would have died. Just
whoa. He was shot in the gut. I think in the 1930s you can survive a gunshot wound in the gut. I'm pretty sure.
The chances of survival were a lot less in the 30s than they are in the 21st century.
They didn't know how long they were going to be stuck in a holodeck. Try your best. I mean, I think Data should have just punched the 2 guys out.
As we know, okay, so I will say this.
Super speed, right? He could have just picked something up and gone. Hit
Not only that, as we know from Star Trek First Contact, he can actually also take machine gun, like a barrage of machine gun fire. So yeah, there are a lot of things that Data could have done. Yes. Why doesn't he do them? Maybe he was just not
in character.
Or he could just not have been confident in himself. There was just that episode that just passed where he. As we know, Data's
an emotion, right? Is confidence an emotion?
No, confidence is not necessarily.
It's emotional response, though.
Yeah.
I think your confidence can be affected by your emotion, but I think you can be emotionlessly unconfident.
I actually think the logical thing for Data to do would have been to save them, to overpower
Yeah.
the thugs, and what are we gonna do? Season 1. Anytime something doesn't make sense, I just say Season 1. What are you gonna do?
So really good point there. I mean, I do agree with you, but then the episode would have been over in a jiffy, and then there wouldn't be anything to talk about. So there is that.
Okay, but I just wanted to establish that.
Good point. Good point.
Thank you.
It is one of the problems of creating a character that's so powerful, right? I mean, you expect that character to be able to do their thing in every situation, and so that is definitely a good point.
That's the Superman problem. Yeah.
Very true. Well, anyways, as the discussions go on, Picard finally convinces Cyrus Redblock and Mr. Leach to step out of the holodeck now that the doors are working. Oh, by the way, there's a whole side thing happening where Wesley's trying to figure out how to fix everything.
Because that's what he does.
Because that's what he does. And actually, there's a funny scene where Wesley's trying to explain what's going to happen, and Riker's like, "There's no time for explanation. Just do it."
And Geordi's hovering over his shoulder, just watching him, right?
Yeah, I think it's just amazing how Wesley is like so good at all of this. Like,
Well, does he save the day? Is he the one who saves the day here?
yeah, he basically gets the holodeck to respond again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, anyways, Cyrus.
No one really thanks him, though. I don't think.
They never thank Wesley.
No.
No one ever seems to thank Wesley enough.
Thank you, Ensign Crusher. You may now stay on the bridge for 22 minutes a day instead of 20. For every good deed you do, I will increase your bridge time by 10%.
Oh my gosh!
Shouldn't he have gotten at least I don't know, a raise in rank at the very least for saving?
No, I mean, like,
saving the life of a fellow crewman and the fiction historian or whatever, but also saving the Starfleet's relationship with these insect people. I mean, if it hadn't been for Wesley, all of this would have been a disaster.
I know the insect people. Who are they? The gelato.
The gelato.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Wesley, relations with the gelato would have gone straight to hell, and that would have meant, what would that have meant for the future of the galaxy? Very bad things, right?
Well, no, it would have really meant another 20 years where we couldn't talk to the Jadan or, whatever. It didn't seem like the first.
I don't think we've seen the Jadan in 20 years anyway, so I'm not sure it made a difference.
But there are some funny gags about like the Jadan's reaction to their language being butchered, which maybe they vomit or some horrifying thing occurs, like, but who knows? So. Then
like
this is the first time we discovered that if you
expert at Velociraptor impersonations,
yes.
You are?
I used to be able to do a very.
Oh, you really? I had a roommate who was really great at it too. Can I hear yours?
It's been a long time.
All right, it's cool. We won't give you any problems. I mean, we'll understand. It's rusty. Everyone, viewers.
I don't know if that was good.
That was amazing.
When we were younger, we.
When we were younger.
When we were younger, Velociraptors.
Yeah, we would do these. We would do these phone, on the phone scenarios, like Star Trek. We would call them Kubarashi Marus, right?
Right. It's role playing. We were role playing.
Right. They would be on the phone, and sometimes they would get quite wild, and I think one of them involved. Being trapped with velociraptors, and he was a velociraptor. Yes.
I was always the dungeon master.
Yeah.
The dungeon raptor.
The dungeon raptor. In a land. By the way, Goldu Scott and I spoke about this. What was it that we were talking about? The narration.
I don't know. We speak about a lot of things. I have no idea where you're going.
I remember now. But this is there's a lost episode of Drunk Space Nine, which we'll talk about on Drunk Space Nine some more.
Already?
But anyways, I did a whole bunch of impersonations of a narrator, so
It wasn't really an episode though. It was our thoughts on the TV series trailer.
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, the narration of
It had just come out, and so we got on that night and we tried to do our thoughts. And my
Okay.
thoughts, well, okay. Since I'll just say it now. You want to just do our thoughts now?
Well, yeah,
Or
we
did you
spent
already do
45.
it?
We spent 45 minutes on it, but you can get
On the
I'll give
Star
you
Trek
three-
Beyond trailer or the TV series
No,
trailer?
we talked about the TV trailer.
Okay,
as
can I
well.
get my TV trailer thoughts really
Get your-
quickly?
get
And
your
then I
2 cents.
actually have to go.
go for it.
Okay. Since the TV trailer only showed us 10 words on a screen, I have brought down my thoughts to just 10 words. And my 10-word review of that trailer is, I hate trailers that just show words on a screen.
That's very good.
Excellent. Very well done.
All right, don't leave just yet. Let me wrap
All
up our show real quick. So,
Okay.
so
Oh, is this the end of the show?
Alma, well, he's gonna leave, but
I don't mean to make the show cut off prematurely. If you guys want to go on without me, you're
Goldie
welcome.
Scott has a hangout with another Cardassian.
A former Apple Store Cardassian. Yep, another one.
So we discovered that if you're ever in danger, get the holodeck danger to follow you outside, and what happens? They disappear. A holodeck character cannot maintain its form outside the holodeck. Of course, this changes
Yet.
later. Oh yeah, this changes later. A holographic character does live outside the holodeck in sickbay, right? The Dr. Zimmerman on Voyager.
Well, actually, well before that, in Next Generation,
Yeah.
Professor Moriarty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right. That he gets a shuttlecraft and everything. I forgot about that.
You forget about that. Oh my
That's
God.
right.
He's Professor Moriarty. How do you forget?
Well, only sentient byproduct of the ship's computer, Professor Moriarty, would be able to do that. But as of right now, that hasn't occurred. And anyways, they disappear. Captain Picard makes it on the bridge just in time to give the greeting to the Jadan, and it's something like it just sounds like a bunch of vomiting sounds, but he does it successfully, and they're very excited, and now we can start a whole new era of relationships with the
Gelato.
with the gelato, and then the episode finishes off in a cute little way where Data does this little he's like Geordi asks so Data, what was it like? And he's like, it was a rainy day in San Francisco, the rain was hard. And then instead of the typical engage, Captain Picard says step on it, and voila, we're done.
Wah, wah.
And I'm excited about the next episode because it is Data lore.
Oh.
It's going to be our first meeting of lore.
Oh.
But yeah. Real quick before you go, Goldie Scott, scale of 1 to 10. Is that the scale on Starfleet Boy? I can never remember.
No, Starfleet Boy is 1 to 5, I believe.
Oh.
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 Oh. 1 to
On
5.
a
What?
scale of 1 to 5, I would give this episode a 2.5.
2.5.
Straight in the middle.
All right. What about you, Doctor?
I give it a 3.
I'm going to give it a
3.1.
I'm going to do a 3.5. It's almost 4 stars. I like this
Oh,
episode a lot. I thought it was a great Picard episode. I thought I'm a fan of the pulp novels and the noir films, so I liked all those references. And it's a good little break from, a mission with aliens and phasers, and although there haven't been any ship battles, Goldie Scott Goldie's always looking for those ship battles.
Ain't gonna happen next week either.
What do you think of the humor, Goldie Scott? You're not a fan of the Star Trek humor.
It has its place. I'm not a fan of Picard as a humorous character. I think the humor in this show works best when it's coming through Data, and when it's Data being unintentionally funny,
Mm-hmm.
or just saying something sort of, I don't know, offensive but not meaning it that way, or just Data being Data. That to me is when the humor of this show works best. But when you've got Picard acting goofy, when you've got them all dressing up in silly costumes, I don't know, it's a little bit much for me.
Do you all think this is where cosplay culture comes from?
Oh, interesting point.
Well, were there
That's true.
Trekkies already dressing up before this show?
Trekkies have definitely been dressing up long before The Next Generation.
But now we have Star Trek characters dressing
up.
So now it's getting really
Meta.
Of course, they dressed up in the old show too. In the TV guide, by the way, and I'm reading this from my trusty companion.
You've got that.
The TV guide said they jeered this episode. Do you remember how TV guide would have cheers and jeers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Where they would rate things. Well, they gave this a jeer, and they said it was too derivative of the original series episode, A Piece of the Action.
Of course. How did we not talk about that? I'm surprised you didn't bring that up, Doctor. How close this was to that. This is just one more homage, or if you just want to say flat out copying the original series.
Well, you have to remember. I think you have to remember a lot of the writers at this point are still there. Like, there's a lot of influence from the original series. I mean, I think Roddenberry came up with the concept for this episode, and I'm sure he's pulling from his own. He's pulling from his own font, his own fount in there.
On another note,
his own Fontaine.
This episode won the George Foster Peabody Award.
Oh.
As the best of the best. I'm sorry, no. It was the Best of the Best Award from the George Foster Peabody
The worst of the best.
Award Board it was the first for an hour-long first-run drama. Now, I don't know what the George Foster Peabody Award Board is, but they gave it an award.
Well, I've heard of the Peabody Award, but I never heard of it being given to a television show. I thought it was like something for like novels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but that's very interesting too. I do disagree, Goldie Scott. I think Picard is actually great. I don't think he's humorous the same way Data is. I think he's more like what we're seeing is Picard let loose and enjoying himself. And I don't think it's appropriate for the character for every episode, but I did like it for this one.
I see your point there.
Yeah. All right,
gentlemen. Well, I'm going to have to bow out on you.
All right, cool. This will be interesting to see what happens when you sign off. Like if.
Yeah. Well, you guys should still be there, and I will look forward to watching the rest of your discussion later on tonight or tomorrow when I get home.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Goldie Scott out.
Live long and prosper.
Yes.
Live long and prosper. Oh, that was cool. He just like boop, blinks out. Before we continue, I'd like. Before we continue, Doctor, I forgot to do this earlier. I wanted to, so hopefully she doesn't watch the show, but if she does, she might stick around to the end.
Yes, Emma's birthday.
We'd like to give a very, very warm Starfleet boy birthday greeting to our friend Emma, who is now a proprietor of the Milky Way Mall Shop. It's nice to be able to say that she's a co-proprietor. So here we go. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Emma. Happy birthday
to you.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to say about this episode before we wrap it up?
Actually, I had tons to say.
Oh, say them now.
No, Golden Scott is gone. It's all right. I can save it for the next holodeck episode. No, I had a lot to. I just wanted what all of you thought about. Just the nature of sentience and these holographic programs. I mean, it seems like from the very beginning, a lot of these holodeck programs seem to have characters that they seem to have a sort of sentience about them. I mean, we have this one, The friend who gets left behind, the Dixon Hill's friend.
Oh, right.
Who,
we didn't even talk about that tender moment.
Yes, that moment where he's
That's
like,
right.
is my wife and kids gonna be home when I go? Are they at home? Are they gonna be home? Am I gonna be able to go back to them? And I'm like, that's way beyond the program's parameters, I would think. And even moving forward to like Deep Space Nine and everything. I mean, we have a lot of hollow sentience. It seems like.
Well, I mean,
it's interesting.
I think sentience. Well, I think sentience and consciousness are kind of like, when it comes to science fiction, those are two areas. Consciousness in particular is an area of interest to science and science fiction, because it's like, with all of our advances, with all of our understanding of how the human body works, with our understanding of biology, with our understanding of nature, of just physics, the mechanics of the universe, we've come so far, yet the one thing that continues to elude humanity and anyone who's on a journey of thought or discovery of self or science, in particular scientists who are trying to figure out how sentience and all that work, completely baffling. I mean, no one understands what happens, how like a life form becomes conscious, and where consciousness goes when a life form ceases to exist in a corporeal form. Yet we all have a concept of existence beyond a physical form, right? So I think that like what's happening here is that it's just a way of presenting another kind of intelligence, another kind of consciousness, another kind of sentience. And it begs the question, like, are these programs just so well written that they come across as sentient or conscious? And it's us that are doing the same thing as when you anthropomorphize something, like we're imbuing them with a sentience or a consciousness that may not actually exist. And this will come up later when we discover some things about Data too. The similar questions will come up about Data,
right?
And whether he's sentient or conscious,
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting that they keep, because I mean, we have Moriarty later on.
Mm-hmm.
I think next season, right?
Yeah, I think he's introduced next season. Pulaski, right?
The Pulaski era. So then later on Deep Space Nine, we have Vic Damone,
mm-hmm.
the lounge singer.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Voyager, we obviously have the Doctor. So, what are the conditions that create this? I think on Deep Space Nine is just kind of, if I'm not mistaken, it's just random. So it's interesting that, I mean, how, if other ships have holodecks, I mean, and through Star Trek, we've seen, I mean, what's the average of sentient holographic beings at this point?
I know, like, is it becoming a problem? Is this like something?
Right. Yes.
Because wait, there's also very realistic Leah Brahms later on, like, who also.
Oh yeah.
Like, there's so much of this going on. Well, I mean, ultimately, what we have to remember is that all of these are the ship's computer, and I think the Enterprise's computer is the most advanced computer up until this point in Star Trek. So what we're really seeing are expressions of the ship's computer's own possible sentience. And later on, if I'm not mistaken, I'm kind of vaguely remembering that there is an episode that addresses the ship's computer becoming sentient in some way, and it had on the Next Generation. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some research to figure out which episode it was, but I just have a vague memory of that. So
the original series, of course, had the M5.
Had what?
Remember on the original series, it was the M5.
Oh yeah.
Which takes over Dr. Daystrom, the great Dr. Daystrom,
The
who
Daystrom Institute, right? That's right.
right, they take over the ship, and that becomes sentient as well, and
Yeah.
just shooting ships left and right.
Well, it's a popular subject in science fiction. I
Yeah.
mean, the machine consciousness, taking over, and the Matrix. It's all about sentient machines, and there's a film I saw recently called Chappie. Have you heard of this movie, Chappie?
I heard of it, but I didn't see it. Yeah.
Pretty good. It's worth a look. It's worth a viewing. What's that? Yeah. He plays a villain for once, which is interesting to see him in that. And yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, I don't think he has ever played it. I can't remember him. Oh well, no, he does. He plays in that really crappy Peter Pan movie. He also played.
Oh God!
Did you see that?
I had forgotten about that movie.
It's a horrible movie.
The movie had a little promise in the beginning, and then it just I really enjoyed
early in the beginning.
I just enjoyed because I think it was always assumed that Peter Pan was an orphan.
Yeah.
And it was kind of neat to see that, like, what J.M. Barrie, the Peter Pan legend is based on this actual orphan, and it's again started out really promising, and then it just, as soon as it became fantastical, it just became too fantastical for my taste. I just thought it was like,
as soon as they started singing a song from Nirvana,
that's right.
Really,
that's right. Yeah, and then it was just it was just not appropriate, and I mean,
it wasn't appropriate at all.
There's a throwaway line in the movie that says that, like, all the people that are there in Neverland are from all of time and space. Like, they could be from many different periods in history.
Yeah,
so like,
that's true. Yeah,
so one can see how that might be. Like the there were some promising characters. Captain Hook was promising in that movie. We shouldn't be talking about this on Starfleet Boy, but just
I'm sorry, I've completely. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
But yeah, but going back, but what led us to that is that, like, I
don't know. You just randomly mentioned Wolverine.
That's right. Chappie, right. That's right. So Chappie addresses Chappie addresses this idea, and actually, a personal fascination of mine. I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. Is I definitely am all for if there's a way to transfer my consciousness from my body into a machine or into a robot.
That's not my fault, is it?
It might be. You may have tuned into something that I really like. So,
I'm sorry, Sal. You're responsible.
What the Doctor is referencing is, when we were in high school, he wrote a short story called The Galactic Heroes, and in the story, my consciousness was displaced and placed into a robot body. Well, I don't know, maybe that did inspire me, but I feel like there's a lot more factors than that. But I think that is definitely something that is so that's a theme that you find in Chappie, is like a machine becoming conscious, and then can you distill human consciousness into code, and then can it be expressed the same way as it is in our bodies, through our minds, through our biological form, in a mechanical form. And so it's very fascinating. Obviously, we are very far away from something like that becoming reality, but there are some exciting things out there, like IBM's Watson is pretty cool. I know Facebook is interested in Mark Zuckerberg is interested in creating something like Jarvis from the Avengers movies, from the Iron Man movies. So
apparently he didn't see Age of Ultron, but okay.
Oh yeah, that was well, Jarvis becomes the Vision, so who knows? That's kind of cool.
We did get Ultron along the way.
Yeah, it's true. We did get Ultron along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good questions about the holodeck and the nature of consciousness, and I just think that, like, that's going to be something that humans are going to be talking about for a long time, from a philosophical standpoint, and it's kind of like the last frontier in a way. Obviously outside of in physical frontiers, space travel is a huge frontier. You know, there's like a lot, there's more space than we can imagine, and there's more universe than we can imagine, and so we have to get our butts off this planet and start colonizing other worlds and visiting planets, and you know, it's exciting. In our lifetimes we're going to see people possibly colonizing Mars, and that's exciting. I think we should start with the moon, but hey, you know, my opinion. But
I agree. We are in agreement there.
Yeah. But the nature of consciousness is going to come up, and as our machines keep getting more advanced, as our computers get more advanced and start doing more and more thinking, I think we're going to see something like what we've been seeing in Star Trek and other shows that address machine life coming into fruition.
One more thing I wanted to mention was one of my favorite lines in the episode is when they explain away Data as being South American.
Yes, that's right.
And it just becomes like a running thing, and I thought it was hilarious.
Cyrus Redblock says something like, "I've been all over the world and I've never seen
a South American like you." You know? Like that, yeah.
Very cool. It kind of so that did kind of like echo the episode where I think, if I'm not mistaken, they explained Spock's ears by saying he had an accident with a rice picker.
Yes, that's right. Yes, it's so I know. Shatner does such a great job in that part. Great, I know. It's really good. Which I guess is in the Chicago episode, right?
Right, that's right.
So I think so. Yeah.
And this takes place in San Francisco, which I like because San Francisco is a very important part of Star Trek. It's where Starfleet headquarters ends up, and it's neat. They visit San Francisco a few times in Next Generation.
Well, a lot of the Raymond Chandler novels also took place
in San Francisco.
In California, yeah, in California.
California.
Cool. Yeah. But I always liked it, like I said, because of the pulp. I mean, it's you know, it's not like hardcore pulp, but and sometimes I wonder if Picard. Sometimes I like in the way he reacts to things in the holodeck. I wonder just how well he has read these books. Sometimes, like he seems puzzled by things. I can't remember any specific ones, but I know there was a reference to like Babe Ruth or something, and I'm like, well, if you really read a lot of these 1930s pulp novels, I would think you would know who, you know, the baseball players are or whatever, you know. But
yeah, there's an interesting thing about Picard. I mean, the things that he's very knowledgeable about, he's really knowledgeable about, but I think that he takes this like fiction with with a grain of salt. Like, I don't think he may have read the Dixon Hill novels, but he may not have like bothered to like look into some of the references maybe inside of them. Like, yeah, Joe DiMaggio, I think, baffles him.
Joe DiMaggio, that's what it was.
Joe DiMaggio baffles him, things like that. But, you know, it's not unlike when I read an Edith Wharton novel. I know there's like lots of references to very like specific, you know, things that were very important at the time that I have no idea. And I really, sometimes when you're reading, you just don't have the time. You just don't want to stop. You don't want to stop.
No, I know. You know, but if you read a lot of Edith Wharton novels, you may begin to pick up certain things, you know.
Right. That's true.
But let me ask you, do you think, and I know we don't want to go on for too much longer, but do you think that with what we've seen so far of Picard as a character, do you think that this this love of the Dixon Hill character and these pulpy 1930s mysteries, do you think that fits his character as we've seen him? Because I mean, obviously it's been alluded to in prior episodes, but we've also seen in prior episodes that, you know, he loves Shakespeare. He's someone who's, you know, he you know, he's into classic literature. You know, he's very knowledgeable about military history, including, well, what at this point would be ancient Earth military history, because he recognizes Q's French, whatever.
The French Marshal.
Right, exactly. So do you think, How do you think this fits with his character and even going on in the series?
I think this is. I think
know.
it fits with his character, and I think it's the revelation of a guilty pleasure. I think Dixon Hill is probably, us being let in on Picard's guilty pleasure. It's like kind of like, I mean, I don't often talk about it, but I really enjoy pop music, especially bands like One Direction. I mean, it's not something that like people look at me or who interact with me would ever think that I would like, but once I reveal it and they see that I'm actually into it, they're like, "Whoa, this is weird." And but I see it as a guilty pleasure, and maybe Dixon Hill is kind of like Picard's guilty pleasure, and I think it's great. He's sharing it with the crew. That's what the point about pleasures is, that they do give you joy. And like, I think that's really evident in this, is that Dixon Hill, whatever it means to Picard, gives him a lot of joy. And this could have been like, it's very possible. And I don't know, there again, Star Trek is such a vast, so many stories have been told about Star Trek, and I can't possibly keep up with all of them. But one wonders if while he was at the Academy, when he was a little bit more, raw and like unpolished, if Dixon Hill wasn't something he discovered there. And it's interesting because when we do have that episode where we see Captain Picard, it's a Q episode, I forget the name of it, but where Captain Picard gets to make that decision again about the Nausicaan incident, right?
Tapestry. I love
Yeah,
that.
Tapestry. Thank you. And everyone's talking in a pulpy kind of accent. They call him Johnny. And there's like this kind of, there's a vibe. What's that?
I don't recall that.
Yeah, there's a noir vibe, and I wonder if again, for it almost kind of like says that like even within the Next Generation, the era of the red uniform, they look at it like the 30s. and then the era that we see the Next Generation is more like the 80s and 90s.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure. I mean, it's just something I'm recalling. I have to like watch that episode again. It's been a while, but that's something I do remember distinctly, that they call him Johnny. The actress in particular has kind of like a Midwestern, kind of like an old noir type, noir film accent.
Wow. Cool. Did we rate this episode? Yes, we did. Right?
Yeah, we did. We rated the episode, and great question.
I give it a 3.1, right? Yes.
Yeah, and I gave it a 3.5. I'm really glad you chose to ask those questions, because like they are relevant to this and to this episode. And just because Galdo Scott's too busy to hang with us doesn't mean we can't keep having the discussion.
Okay.
Well, Doctor, anything else to say about the episode?
No, I think we've said enough. I mean, I think we both enjoyed it more than Galdo Scott.
Definitely.
I'm sorry he's not as into Picard's humorous side.
Did they ever make Dixon Hill action figures?
They made, yes, and I don't have it. There is Picard in Dixon Hill garb, and I think there's Crusher also wearing that hat.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad they did that.
Yeah.
Whoever they are.
They are.
All right. Have a great evening, and thank you for joining me and discussing the big goodbye. And on that note, live long and prosper.
Goodbye.